So today, we're going to dive into a system that could totally change how we think about our digital work. It's this idea that turns all your data contributions, every single click, label, and validation, into a real, ownable asset, one that can actually pay you. We're going to take a tour of how a system like Codatta makes this happen.
But first, let's start with a big question. Just think about all the digital stuff you do. Labeling images for AI, giving data samples, confirming info. What if every one of those actions wasn't just, work for someone else, but it was an investment? An investment that could generate a passive income stream for you. That's the really powerful idea we're going to unpack here. And to get our heads around how this works, I want you to imagine we're touring a super futuristic digital factory. Now, this isn't a place with sparks and steel, no. It's a system that's built to take the raw material of your data and, through a really precise process, turn it into a finished, valuable, and profitable product. Okay, our first stop on the tour is the main production line. And just like any great factory, Codatta is designed to take one simple data contribution and guide it through a complete transformation, all the way from raw material to an actual royalty payment hitting your account.
And here's the blueprint for that whole process. It's basically a four-stage assembly line. First up, you have contribution. That's where the raw materials come in. Second is assetification, which is just a fancy word for assembly and packaging. Third, we've got usage. Think of this as the shipping and sales department. And last but not least, royalty, which is the automated accounting office that handles all the payouts. So let's break down each stage.
Everything kicks off right here, at the factory's receiving dock. As a contributor, you're the one providing the raw materials, maybe a data sample, a label for an image, a quick validation. The second your work is submitted, bam, it gets stamped with what's called a contribution fingerprint. The best way to think about it is like a unique, unforgeable serial number that proves you made it, and exactly when you made it.
Next up, your fingerprinted contribution moves on to the main assembly floor. This is where it gets combined with other verified contributions to build something much bigger and more valuable, a complete data set. This finished product is then formally minted. That just means it's packaged up into a digital asset with real, transferable ownership shares. It is now officially something people can own and even trade.
Okay, so once it's all packaged, the product is off to shipping and sales. AI developers who really need high-quality data can now access it through a secure gateway. And the key concept here is something called metering. Every single time that data is used, it's tracked. It creates a billing event, kind of like how your electric meter tracks how much electricity you're using.
And all that metering brings us to the final, and let's be honest, the most rewarding stage, the royalty engine. This thing takes all the revenue generated from usage, checks the ownership records, and then automatically distributes the payments to every single shareholder. It's transparent, it's automated, and it's deterministic, which just means the payout calculation is totally predictable and can be double-checked by anyone.
So, we've seen the 4 stages of the production line. Pretty cool, right? But what makes it all run so smoothly and, maybe more importantly, so transparently? Well, to understand that, we've got to leave the main factory floor and head down into the engine room to check out the core machinery.
Down here, we find the 2 critical pieces of tech that power this entire factory. On one side, you have the contribution fingerprint. You can think of that as the ultimate quality stamp. And on the other side, you've got the royalty engine, which is the automated payout system. The contribution fingerprint is seriously the bedrock of trust for this whole system. It's way more than just a timestamp. It's a verifiable, signed record that permanently answers the critical questions. Who made this contribution? What exactly did they do? When did they do it? And what's the proof? It is the absolute source of truth that everything else is built on.
Now, the second core machine is the royalty engine, and you can think of it as the factory's totally incorruptible treasurer. Its one and only job is to take the revenue and split it fairly among everyone who holds an ownership share. And the really crucial part is that its calculations are deterministic, meaning they're predictable, they're transparent, and anyone can re-verify them at any time to make sure it's all correct.
So the factory is up and running, the tech is in place, and real value is being created. And this, of course, leads to the next obvious question. How can you get a piece of the action? How do you actually get ownership in one of these data assets?
Well, there are 2 main ways to get ownership. You can be a knowledge contributor, which is basically like being a worker on the factory floor. You're the one actually creating the value by providing all that raw data and insight. Or you can be a knowledge backer, which is more like being an investor in the factory, providing the capital to help the project scale up and succeed.
And for those investors, the knowledge backers, there are actually a few different ways to get a stake. They can provide initial capital to get a project off the ground, a lot like an early investor. They can also buy and sell ownership shares on a secondary market, pretty similar to how stocks are traded. It's a really flexible system that's designed to bring in both financial support and expert validation.
All right, let's step back from the factory floor for a moment and just look at the big picture. We've seen the production line, we've been in the engine room, we know the different roles people can play, but what's the ultimate goal here? Why build this whole complicated digital factory in the first place?
Well, the ultimate mission is actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. It's all about turning data into a brand new, ownable asset class. An asset class where your rights are provable, your ownership is easily transferable, and the revenue it generates is automatically shared with you through royalties. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've all heard that phrase, data is the new oil, right? It's incredibly valuable. But for decades, only a handful of massive companies have owned the wells, the refineries, and all the pipelines. Systems like Codatta are proposing a completely new model, one where the very people who create the value also get to own a piece of the pipeline. And that's something worth thinking about.